Hello, everyone. Welcome to No Single Path podcast series. In this series, we explore a wide range of topics, including technology trends, leadership, product management, and artificial intelligence, featuring insights from peers within the community. Today, I have the privilege to deep dive into data cloud and future of AI with two distinguished guests. Eric Dreshfield, he is a prominent figure in the Salesforce community, known for founding Dream In events, including Midwest Dream In and Dream In Data, and being a Salesforce MVP Hall of Fame member. His extensive network and influence have earned him the nickname Kevin Bacon of the Salesforce ecosystem, as he connects various communities and individuals, fostering collaboration. And my other guest is Mohit Shrivastava. With his in depth knowledge and understanding of the Salesforce ecosystem, he has effectively connected product development and community requirements. He achieved this by actively empowering developers through the creation and dissemination of valuable content and fostering a sense of community and engagement. Welcome to this podcast, Eric and Mohit.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having me on.
Thank you. So before we dive into this conversation, for the unversed, what is Data Cloud and how is it shaping Salesforce ecosystem? Eric, would you like
Well,
to start first?
sure. I would say that Data Cloud is like the foundation that your Salesforce instance should be built upon. It kind of brings together all of your data into one place so you really know what your customers' wants and needs are. And it
Mm-hmm.
helps enable you to deliver exactly what you can to meet those needs at the right place at the right time. And more importantly, to the right customers, even.
That's right. Mohit, your thoughts?
Yeah. Same as Eric. Data cloud is one of our emerging technologies, and we needed it forever. I would say. Glad that last 2 years we've seen a lot of progress on this technology. So
Mm-hmm.
as Eric said, right, data cloud is our data unification engine. Like all these enterprise companies, they have multiple data sources and they create data silos for all of us. Some systems have data about some customer context, right? But they're not integrated together, right? And that's why it's like not having the complete context. And in today's world, whether you're building agents or applications, having that one unified view really helps because it really helps to understand your customer better. So data cloud solves two problems. One, of course, bringing all the data from multiple systems together, be it Snowflake or any other data lake that you might have, or you might not even have a data lake. Maybe data cloud is your data lake for the for this era, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you might also have multiple Salesforce orgs, other disconnected systems. So you can all bring together. We have number of connectors, then create a common definition or a data model, and then activate it using all the tools that we give, like data graphs, transforms, identity resolution. For example, your data might have different definition across systems. Like your marketing cloud say it as subscribers. Your Salesforce may talk it as contacts, but they are same, and
Mm-hmm.
you need
Mm-hmm.
that one unified view. So that's what data cloud is all about, bringing everything together for agents and apps.
Awesome. So we do have our traditional warehouses and data lakes already existing, right? So how is data cloud different from those traditional infrastructure which we already have?
Yeah, great question. A lot of our customers already have these data lakes, but really the challenge is, data lakes solve one aspect of the problem, which is, it's more of a place where you dump all the data, and then sort of you have to write, reverse ETL and other
Mm-hmm.
complex logic, basically using ETL, and you have to connect this data through ESP. So there's a lot of logic that is required to write and maintain, and that's what data cloud is going to solve. It's not just its simple data lake. On top of
Mm-hmm.
it, it's backed by the Salesforce metadata layer that we all love and use. Like, for example, in Salesforce, our developers and admins love flows because they can process automate with that data. um, and with Salesforce, right, you love a lot of features like reports and dashboards, and you need that feature right away on that data lake where your data is sitting, just like how it is possible with transactional system like CRM, like Salesforce CRM
Yes.
or Salesforce platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need those features like that metadata platform, those features to be able to deliver value out of that data really quick, right? And that is where I see data cloud is different, because it's not just data lake, it has this whole activation layer. And there are different activation layers, like I talked about, right? Metadata layer, you can write process automation on it, you can do analytics on it, you can do machine learning on it, for both predictive and generative AI. And then we have all these AI technologies, and we are making it very easy to work with that data in data cloud. So that's the
Mm,
differentiation.
great. So, Eric, with your extensive Salesforce experience, how do you see community adapting to the advancements in AI and data cloud?
You know, ever since the announcement first came out, it seems like there's been a lot of excitement building over this. Um, I mean, we saw it at Dreamin' in Data where Mohith came and spoke back in November as well. And I think, yeah, I think in general, the community's excited about the possibilities and really looking forward to moving forward with it and implementing and seeing what they can do and what the value it can bring to their organizations are.
Mhm.
Um, Part of me wants to say excited might be a little too strong. Maybe cautiously optimistic is another way of wording it. Primarily because there's so many things you have to do to get ready for it. Your data has to be in a certain state. Let's just put it
Mhm.
that way. You have to make sure you have very good, very clean data. Otherwise, the results you're going to see are not going to be as good or as clean and predictive as you might want them to be or as you might expect them to be. It's a to use the old school language lingo. It's kind of a classic case of garbage in, garbage out. But what you got to do is clean things up so that what you get out is much better and much more meaningful.
That's great. What excites you most about this potential data cloud transforming business outcomes?
Yeah. So there are a couple of things that I'm really excited about. One of them, from business perspective, that I see is experience itself, like the customer experience. So all these businesses provide tools today, and I think what is missing is that next level of customer experience. And I think Data Cloud is a platform that's going to enable it, because again, as we talked about, it can bring in data, harmonize it, and activate the data in the flow of work for everyone. So that is what I'm excited about. That's the number one thing. The second thing that I'm excited about with all the data cloud is, for us as Salesforce developers, we always had these complex challenges with the data. Like for example, integrating multiple Salesforce orgs, for example, or let's say there's a big data operation that we want to do, or have it as a part of the application. So those kind of requirements can now be fulfilled, right? So like when I look at requirements from customers, there, for me as a developer, now there is this whole architecture that I can say, okay, I can see if we can implement this in data cloud today, right? And sort of marry it with Salesforce platform as it is today, right? So to me, that is the big part, is like now we have solutions, like for example, somebody running into like these big issues, like for example, not able to process huge volumes of data, right? We could put them on data cloud, process it, and only get aggregated results that matter in a transaction to the CRM
Mhm.
systems, right? Salesforce
That's
system.
right.
Yeah, so those kind of challenges, right, that the scale challenges that we were facing in terms of both architecture and the system limitations of the Salesforce platform, we'll see that kind of vanishes away, having a data cloud in the middle of all of your other architecture that you have in place.
Yeah. As we are thinking about AI and the use cases, there are a lot of use cases, and especially when we are talking about from Salesforce perspective, like as you said, marketing, cloud, marketing, sales, customer support, there are a lot of uh, pillars that AI can leverage and advance our outcomes. But from your perspective, how is AI transforming our data cloud solutions today? And could you share like some real world use cases where it has already provided some outcomes?
Yeah. Without taking any customers names, of course I cannot take
Yes.
customers name for confidentiality. But one thing I want to appreciate, Eric, is Eric kind of co-founded this Data in Dreaming. It was really a nice conference actually to go there and look at what Data Cloud offers, right? And how it kind of integrates with AI. So that conference, right? I was listening to a lot of presentations. I myself had, a presentation to deliver, and after I walked away from that conference, one thing was very clear is the value that the data cloud will add to the AI story, right? So one of the challenges I would say is for enterprises is unlocking insights from unstructured data, right?
That's right.
Like for example, if you look at any operation, like I can give you a real world example here. Like for example, I wanted to look at some credit card offers that these
Mm-hmm.
various companies are providing, and today, as a customer, I have to go to their website and then look at all the offers and then sort of do the comparison, find the information that I'm looking for, either by reading those brochures or by browsing their websites, right? To me, that's a lot of mental work. Like there's a lot of work, right? I have to take there's a lot of work there, right? All I want is, hey, this is my requirement, right? I'm looking for a credit card which can provide me travel benefits, and lounge access. This is all I'm looking for. So instead of me going having to read all that unstructured data, I think we can unlock this data through RAG, which is our data cloud offering. RAG is retrieval
Mm-hmm.
augmented generation, and I had a pleasure to present what is RAG and how organizations can implement RAG on our data cloud. So by implementing the RAG, right, you take that same assets that you already have, the content that you already have, index it in a vector DB, and then you are suddenly providing a solution where people can just ask questions, um, but ask questions with that marketing asset that you have, right? With the
Mm-hmm.
asset that you already have, the content that you already have. So now you're not searching through the content. Instead, you are like conversationally getting your queries resolved. So that's the a different level of customer experience altogether. And AI is kind of enabling, because RAG is a AI technology, right? Retrieval augment generation involves using
Mm-hmm.
large language models, which is an AI technology. But for someone to implement these technologies, right, there is a lot of things they have to consider. And that is where I love Salesforce Data Cloud, because we make it point and click. So you bring your documents and then you go through some configuration, and here we have provisioned you a database with a vector database, and then tightly integrated with our prompt builder, tools like prompt builder and agent builder, so you can start
Mm-hmm.
building agents with it. So you see the value there, right? And that's one of the use cases that I always talk about, like the amount of unstructured data that every organization has today, and the value that people can derive out of those data. It's just exponential with AI technology, and that
That's
improves,
fascinating.
yeah, improves the customer experience too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's really fascinating, and everyone can relate to it, right? Like, I have a lot of offers that's coming in, and I don't know which one is the right one to choose from.
yeah,
And reading through all those fine line, fine tuned documents, it's
yeah.
really hard. That's great, Eric. From your perspective.
Yeah, I think with my background years before Salesforce being working in a call center, I'm excited about those possibilities and what it's going to do to enable call centers to deflect more calls,
Mm-hmm.
to allow people to find their own answers much quicker through, as Mohith just kind of alluded to, through Agent Force and the use of agents, and what I think Benioff's term was digital labor, as
Mm-hmm.
he talked about it earlier. And so it's exciting to see that this is enabling some workload to be removed from humans to be able to provide better customer service to customers. Now, the way I worded that, some people are probably still screaming the fear that AI is going to take their job. Personally, I don't feel like that's the case. I think it's just shifting where the jobs are going to be and responsibilities that people are going to have, and those that are aware of what AI is capable of doing and how to do the configuration and how to build things around it. They're going
Mm-hmm.
to shift their jobs into that, as opposed to doing some of these other things where the digital labor is going to take over to deflect calls and things like that. But I think in reality, all it's really going to do is enhance everyone's ability to do their jobs better, to be able to provide better experiences for customers, and it should all hopefully, just continue moving forward and making everything run more smoothly.
That's great. So, as we are thinking through about these business cases and how data cloud is going to play a bigger role, right? So, and how do you think that data cloud will enhance these AI models? Those are some of those use cases that we just discussed about, but how else these AI models can be better equipped with the data cloud and giving that unified data set? Eric?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I touched on just a little while ago about the data being the foundation for everything. If you think about it like a building, like your house, like the
Mm-hmm.
Salesforce towers, you have to have a strong foundation to be able to build on top of it. And as you do that, that enables you to provide um, better services, better response time, better answers that
Mm-hmm.
help people solve the problems that they have at hand. And I think that's probably one of the real exciting pieces about how AI is going to help do drive all of this forward and make people's jobs easier and move things forward.
Mohit?
Yeah. So when I look at about these large language models, and these models are evolving rapidly, as we have seen in last 2 years, right? But as everybody is aware, I mean, these large language models by themselves are not enough, because if you look at any large language model, I mean, they are, first of all, they are sort of trained and capped to a certain um, time in the history, right? Like, for example, chat gpt, it uses the GPT model, GPT-4, and it's capped to 2023. And the world changes quickly, the data changes quickly, right?
Yeah.
And and so these models are not enough. You need to take the insights that they provide, but you have to supplement them with what is truth, right? Which is what we call grounding. You have to ground it with the real responses or the real information. And I think that is where these agents are going to be huge, because they will connect this LLM to actual applications that we need, by
Mm-hmm.
providing them that data, that real time access to the data and the real time insights. And then they are not hallucinating at that point, like these large language model, right? For example, and somebody in your audience might be interested, right? Go type what is blockchain artificial intelligence, and the model is going to hallucinate. I mean, there's nothing called blockchain artificial intelligence. So, but the model is not going to tell you that there is nothing called blockchain artificial intelligence. I mean, these
Mm-hmm.
models are, now that we have kind of learned, and it used to be like a closed thing, but now all these open source work have kind of exposed how these models are built. So they are text predictors in a way, right? I mean, they can reason to some extent, but we have all figured it out by now that they are not going to be perfect, at least anytime soon. I mean, I know AGI and all people talk about it, but the reality is, at this point, right, they are not that, they're not 100% accurate. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they can be made accurate by different methods. Like RAG was one of the methods. You can fine tune model with your own data set, right? So you see the data becomes critical, because now the model needs this data that is there in the data cloud. Even if you're doing a RAG, it requires, and RAG and fine tuning are, these are two techniques. For technical audience here, these are two techniques to reduce hallucinations, and they are data dependent. As you can see, RAG,
Mm-hmm.
you provide information from your database, right? That's nothing but, you need data. And then the second thing is you fine tune. So fine tuning is by using the data set again. So
Mm-hmm.
you see that fine tuning also requires data, so you need unified data, right? And typically what happens is, if you were to fine tune your large language, like a large language model today, you will have to plug in data from these multiple systems, then do these
True.
transformations, saying, okay, marketing cloud says, subscribers, Salesforce says contacts for the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Pardot said something else, probably, maybe there's prospects or something, right? Maybe there's another system that speaks a different language. Maybe, instead of contacts is saying customers.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these data separated, and then you want a common, like, you want to collect everything, do identity resolution, which is what data cloud like shines. You
Mm-hmm.
need that identity resolution to say, okay, all this data is about this one thing, and this thing is called contact, probably. individual contact or individual. That's what we call in data cloud, right? So how do you do that without a data, right? So you need that system
Mhm.
to bring in that, and that is where that data cloud kind of comes into picture, or
Great.
becomes that foundation, for all of the thing.
I have a question from the community. So, how do you anticipate data cloud helping deal with data with quality issues feeding LLMs?
Quality issues. That's a great question, and I think Eric touched on it. Right, the garbage in, garbage out. Right. I mean,
Mm.
if you have garbage data, you're gonna get garbage responses. Right. That is how it is. Right. So how does data cloud kind of helps there? So I want to call out two different features that are really important in data cloud. One is data transformation feature. Really,
Mm.
it helps you to bring in, like, let's say, a garbage data, for example, right? And then you could like create rules around it, right? Filters, you can add filters, you can, say, okay, change this data to this, because this is garbage, right? Filter out all the data that doesn't have, proper email addresses, for example, the zip code being wrong, like more than 5 digits, for example,
Mhm.
in US, right? So you have transformations where you can like transform the data, and that's going to be critical feature. The other thing is data graphs. So data graphs kind of allow you to like take the transformation to the next level, right? So these two are the features which you can leverage to like really make sure that you have a unified view and a data which is really more accurate and structured. And of
Mm.
course, don't forget MuleSoft. MuleSoft has more
That's right.
connectors and transformation layers, so you can always use that to do that. And then you have identity resolution, which is kind of a thing to unify that data, right? So there you can add again rules and your field level rules and whatnot, right? The attribute level rules that you want to add. So how do you unify that data, right? How do you profile it to so
Mhm.
that you have a individual profile, right? So that is how you these are some of the features of data cloud that can really help you to clean that garbage out from the data and kind of give you the data which is actionable.
Mm. That's great. So, Eric, from business perspective, right? Everyone knows about the data integrity and AI being the open for all, and there is always a conversation about privacy with AI and the amount of data that we are feeding into AI models to build these LLMs and whatnot. How do you envision GDPR and those compliance rules impacting our AI models, and what kind of precautionary measures that businesses have to think about when they are building these LLMs?
That's a really good question, and over the last several years, we've seen the emphasis on data security, data privacy just growing and growing and
Mm.
growing.
Yes.
To me, it feels like Europe started that with GDPR, and other places have kind of adopted similar
Mm.
models and similar guidance. I mean, even here in the U.S., for example, I think
Mm-hmm.
California has more strict rules than some of the other states. They have their own particular legislation around it compared to some of
Mm-hmm.
the others. So it's definitely a very big concern that needs to be addressed. And I think as you're building out the data to to power your AI and your agents, you need to keep some of those things in mind and be cautious with the data you're actually putting out there. Um,
Right.
so that you're not throwing something out there that might violate a privacy issue, whether it's with a client of yours, a customer, a patient,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. You just need to be cautious to make sure that you're preventing that from happening. Um, I think early on when people first started talking about AI, and um, a lot of people kind of had this common misconception that it just does what it's supposed to and it knows how to do it. And Mohith, you kind of alluded to it a little while ago that you need to train it, you need to power it with the proper data so that it's going to react the way that it should and produce the results that it can, and to help things uh, move forward. And it really all goes back down to having good, clean data as the foundation of everything.
Hmm. Great. Another question from the community is that Salesforce has introduced several AI powered features in the ecosystem like Einstein, um, How do you see AI transforming the sales and marketing landscape within the Salesforce in the coming years?
Yeah, so when I think about these whole transformation, right, all these features that Salesforce is introducing, right, I mean, it's going to transform definitely how we're going to work. That's for there. And I think what it's going to do is it's going to make us efficient. That's for
Mm,
sure. And how it's going to do like how it's going to improve our efficiency is because a lot of these things today when you do marketing or sales, right, I think today what happens is people spend a lot of time doing a lot of manual work. Like I'll give you an example. Like, for example, let's say someone in marketing, right? How are they doing their work? I mean, they have to find a tagline for their campaign. Maybe
mhm,
they have to write emails, for their campaign. And most of the time they are starting with blank slate. That means nothing is there. They're just going to go there and go from like zero level and kind of build these upon iterate and spend a bunch of time, right? AI accelerates that. Like you can say, hey, give me some taglines, and then it will be like it'll give you 10 taglines. Probably might not be one that you're looking up, but again, it has opened your mind to give you all the options, right? So you as a human can then say, okay, I like this, I probably edit this piece of thing, I didn't like this, probably I write this up. But as you can see, it's not starting from zero. So it is done some work in a way, right?
mhm,
Similarly for sales, same thing. You fill up a lot of forms today. Like even if you're working on an opportunity, let's say you have to go fill up these details, like how much this opportunity costs. You have to take notes about these opportunity, maybe execute a couple of tasks, go and update system. I think those kind of thing will go away in the future, right? More time just talking to customers. Like sales, I see they'll be spending more time talking to customers, and then they'll have an AI which kind of summarizes the or writes notes for them. They'll have AI which kind of logs tasks for them. They'll have AI that they can speak to log those opportunities in Salesforce system. So that's how I see. I mean, it's going to improve the overall work efficiency by reducing all these manual tasks that we had to do to get the data in structured format. I still think that everything needs to be in structured format in Salesforce, and you need to write automations, etc. All those things are not going to go away. I've seen like Twitter posts and other social media posts debating around this, right? And my
mhm,
personal opinion on this is you still need that guardrails in place. Like your previous question that you asked to Eric, right? It was a great question. Like, these AI agents, I mean, you cannot have these AI agents just go do whatever, they do and you trust upon it, right? You still need to put a guardrail in place, just like how you have guardrails for humans, right?
mhm,
When like me as a software developer builds like a code, there is a person to review that code. There's a person to make sure everything gets deployed, tested, right? Same thing is going to happen with AI too. I mean, I don't think at this point we are at that level where we can like just raise our hands off the keyboard and then like AI is doing all the stuff on its own, right? Like a movie, right? I think we're still far away from that. Who knows? I mean, I'm not the expert on that to claim how far, etc. But
mhm,
I know at this point is like it requires supervision, and that's why you will see in Salesforce all of the Einstein features that we have, right? There were a lot of features like that. Like for example, even in service cloud, like service agent use case, right? You can escalate to a human, right? I mean, you can write a rule to escalate to a human. There is a supervisor built for this AI agents. Like that's one of the features that will come in spring release, is like you can supervise that agent. That means if
oh,
you have
wow.
like 10 agents kind of doing the transaction, you have a place where you can see what they are doing, what is their metrics, what did they have as a part of the conversation, how did the customer react to these, right? So you can supervise and improve it, right? um, Testing center, that's another thing that's going to be huge. So like we will have a lot of sessions on them on our YouTube channel. Before you kind of deploy these agents, you can test that with different variations of your prompt and be sure that okay, we know that 90% of the times it's going to respond in this way that we have like built it out, right?
Mm,
And that is how it differs from the traditional software system. Like traditional software system, as soon as you build, you're like 100% sure that hey, this is going to work because you have tested it, right? You want to go the same route for agents too, like with testing center. Although they are random, you still want to test and evaluate them, right? So Those type of things, supervision, more guardrails, I would say. All these features will be there in the Einstein, and this is all going to
Mhm.
transform, definitely going to transform how we work. We'll be collaborating with these agents and we'll be using AI. Like, I cannot imagine now uh, doing my work without a coding assistant. I mean, they never existed. Like, a few days back, right, or a few years back, I had to just rely on my ID. Now I have the assistant, and it's not that I'm not going to subscribe to my favorite coding assistant. I'm still going to subscribe to it because I know it's reducing my workload. Like, from
Mhm.
the task that used to take me 4 hours, it's now taking me probably 2 hours, 3 hours, or whatever, right? It's taking less time because these agents are helping, right? So I think that that world is going to exist where both humans and kind of these agents or AI is going to transform, and companies like Salesforce and others will look to how they can use this AI to, like, sort of be more helpful to the users.
Great. So as we are on the data compliance and others, right? So can you touch upon the existing security and compliance aspects of data cloud?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Data clouds compliance, we have always kind of looked at it, and a lot of features coming. I think one of the features that's going to show up as beta feature in Feb release is access based rules. Okay, so
Ah,
a lot of Salesforce has the sharing rules and field level security,
true.
etc. So
Hmm.
access based rules are going to be something like that for data cloud. So that's going to be coming. So that way you can be sure, data spaces are another feature we have, where you can segregate data based on a data space. Like, for example, you don't want data in AMA region to be visible to Europe region, right? So
Hmm.
data spaces are right way to do some sort of things like that. And then, attribute based, like you want some fields to be visible to some users but not to others. Those kind of features we definitely are going to bring it. And more governance features, you can tag these metadata of data cloud. All these things are going to show up very soon, maybe in Feb, as we speak. I mean, of course it's already there as beta. Maybe it moves to GA and stuff like that. So there's a lot of governance aspect that is going into data cloud now.
That's great. So Eric, from business perspective, when we are thinking about all of these compliance and security initiatives, right? So do you think it is hindering the business to advance faster, or there are so many rules that is coming up? Technology is is growing and driving faster. So is business is able to catch up on all of these security and compliance initiatives?
Yeah, that is a really interesting topic. I mean, the speed of technology, we all know, it just seems to keep increasing faster and faster all the time, and the advancements and the things we're now talking about right here. Um, Businesses, on the other hand, I think certain industries do a better job keeping up with those types of trends, and other
Mm-hmm.
industries may be a little skeptical. Maybe that's a word for it. Maybe they have some additional layers of security that they need to go through. Financial services, for example,
Mm-hmm.
just being one of those industries that's heavily regulated and has a lot of additional security hoops to jump through. Now, on the flip side of that, though, I think financial services is one of the industries that's really doing a good job of taking advantage of the AI technology that's already out there. I saw an article just a little while back talking about JP Morgan Chase and all the
Mm-hmm.
things they're doing powered by AI. So it's interesting to the dichotomy of old school industries that have been around a long time, possibly taking advantage of the new technology faster than some of the other industries. But it is definitely an interesting thought process that those organizations have to go through and figure out if it works for them. I think part of what some of the organizations may have to overcome is the fear of what AI is going to do
Mm-hmm.
to their data, to their processing, to the way they do business. And there's a human aspect to it that we sort of touched upon a little bit earlier, where it's going to shift the way people do their jobs. Um, and people don't like change, right? Everybody kind of has this fear of change to some degree, and so that I think is it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out and which industries really take a hold of it faster and do better things with it. But it'll be unique in experience for each organization and each industry for sure.
True. And I think from a business perspective, the infrastructure cost also gets increased exponentially, right? So when they are thinking about all of these existing processes, they don't have to worry about the LLMs, the cost of LLMs, how much they have to invest in it. So would that also be an additional factor that business has to think through on?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a cost to all of this, but I think if the organizations really think about it more as an investment in their
Hmm.
future, it's not gonna hit them as hard perhaps as a true cost. It's gonna the investment they're gonna make today is gonna pay dividends in the longer term and make things much more efficient for them. They'll be able to do better things with the people they have and the technology they have, and they're starting to use more into the future. So I almost feel like it's an investment in the future rather than a cost.
Makes sense. So as we are thinking about the cost and everything, right? Like from challenges, what are from your perspective, what kind of challenges that businesses are facing today to adopting AI-driven data cloud strategies?
Yeah, I think some of it varies, like we just sort of touched on, varies a little bit based upon the industry
Yes.
that they're in and what kind of regulations are driven around that particular industry. We've seen some of that very recently here in the U.S. about the regulations that the government is putting into place or taking away, repealing, as is the
Hmm.
case recently. And I'm sure other countries besides just the U.S. are going through those same motions, where they're concerned about what this really looks like and what it has the potential to do um, if it falls into the wrong hands. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if the bad actors get a hold of things they shouldn't, what's that going to enable them to do? And it feels like it could be a snowball effect on the good side and potentially on the negative side, where once something starts, it may be hard to stop it, and it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. But so we definitely need to keep an eye on those things and be aware of what's happening. And as Mohith mentioned earlier, make sure the proper guardrails are put into place,
Mm.
even as the humans still are involved. So
Great. So back to you, Mohit, then. How can organizations ensure data security and compliance while leveraging AI cloud technology?
Yeah, so so compliance again, it's a very, I would say, very deep topic, right? It depends on, again, as industry, what compliance they are. I mean, first thing is to find out your processes, like what compliant you want your processes to be, and then look at the
Mm.
products that Salesforce has and see if those products kind of meet the need, right? Most of our products are like really really compliant, so that is one way to look at it, is make sure that you know your industry, you know what compliance you're following, right? And then there is this aspect of, sometimes it's not just about product following the compliance, like you have to implement that compliance into your processes that you're building, right? Like for example, GDPR, right? GDPR is not just like implementing, like a product can be GDPR compliant. That means it can provide platform, so but the onus is still on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the traditional identity and security, right? Identity management, implementing identity management for your services that you're using, making sure that they are really compliant and secure, and also configuring, like for example Salesforce, right? When you're using Salesforce, as I said, data cloud has role based access now. The Sorry, not role based, the attribute based
Yep.
access,
Mm-hmm.
ABAC we call. So that, and then trust layer, like for example Salesforce, all of the AI products, they work with trust layer, right? So making sure that you're aware of these trust layer, what they can help you, turning it on, monitoring, and then
Mm-hmm.
monitoring your agent, just like agent, or your data, just like any other human process here, like especially your agent, right? You need to be able to monitor them, supervise them, being able to like have rules, and also process in place if something goes wrong. Like for example, let's say something goes wrong, like agent is go it went and took a wrong action. how
Mm-hmm.
do you how do you reward that, right? You should definitely plan for that in your implementation. So these are some of the ways you can ensure that you're staying compliant with your processes and human in the loop.
Mm-hmm.
So don't I won't say like we are ready for that agentic, like 200% agents doing all the things, right? There needs to be a thought through process, and how humans can be big part of it. That needs to be thought through. So again, process and compliance based on country you are on, based on what products you are using. So all these will be a factor in implementing them. And the good news is on Salesforce platform, though, it's not that much difficult, to be honest, because a lot of these things are taken care in the product itself. So knowing that is going to be a big enabler. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're using like external solutions, I would definitely pay attention to it and understand, like, what security measures needs to be in place.
So when we are thinking about security and identity management and whatnot, right? So one thing that pops my mind is hackers, like bad actors hacking our data. It's a very common case, right?
Yeah.
So now that we our data is like companies' proprietary data and individuals' data, everything is there in LLMs because we are we are training those LLMs in multiple shapes and forms. So how easy I mean, how easy or difficult it is to get hacked by these bad actors.
Easy with LLM, right? That's the reality. Easy with LLM. Like for example, look, that is one thing you have to be really careful with LLMs. Is if you go and put your data into an LLM, like let's say email address or something, you went and put
Hmm.
into an LLM. Some like some model providers, right? They have a class. When you, like for example, any LLM tool that you use, you have to read through the class, right? And some LLM tools will say, hey, we will use your data to train these model further, right?
Hmm.
uh, that's a big no-no for enterprise if that happens, because then they're taking your data, they're training that LLM on that data, and then your competitor also has access to the same LLM, right?
Right.
So that's why if you look at Salesforce, one of the things you will see is we never train, like we never use customer data to train any large language model.
Hmm.
Okay. So it's up to customer to fine tune and use it within their own infrastructure, etc. There's no thing called Salesforce, model, or Salesforce proprietary model that we use, that uses customer data. No. When we are doing, like for example, when we are interacting with LLM, like let's say you're using prompt builder and you've written a
Hmm.
prompt where you provided details like contact information, right? What we do is we have this trust layer. What trust layer does is it takes that data that you have provided, and it kind of masks that data, okay, or
Hmm.
put a mask on the data, and then it
Hmm.
sends to the LLM. And then once you get the response back from the LLM, it will demask, because for an LLM, it doesn't matter what you are, like what data you're giving it to it. It just needs
Hmm.
to understand the context. Like for example, if I say write an email for Sofia Rodriguez, who is, let's say, a contact in Salesforce, for asking a PTO, and her
Hmm.
manager is XYZ, right? For an LLM, if you just substitute Sophia with something else, like maybe something else like XYZ, and
Hmm.
also substitute the manager with another variable, it's still gonna respond, okay, and it's still, the response is gonna be useful,
Yeah.
right? So for an LLM, all it matters is the context of the data, not the data itself. And that is the property that we use. It's like we make sure that these LLMs are not retaining any data by signing a contract with them, also by masking away the data,
Hmm.
so that way you are secure, kind of thing. So that way you are still getting all the benefits out of these LLMs, but your data is still with you, right?
Hmm.
And we don't train with your data. There's no model that we build based on data. In fact, we used to have this agent force for developers, where we used to have this clause saying, hey, we can use your code, to improve our models, and we had a lot of pushback on that. I think I remember like a year ago, and then we kind of got rid of that clause, and now we don't use any of the code from our developers to train our own models. So
Mm,
really, we don't use any data to train our models. We produce our own data, own synthetic data, a lot of times our own code base. We have
mm,
humans working to produce that data, and then we use that data to train, if we need to, right? So
great. So, Eric, this is for you. What industries are leading the charge in adopting AI-powered data cloud technologies? As you just mentioned, some are slow, some are advancing, some are in between. So, from
Yeah.
your
Yep.
perspective.
Yeah, from what I've seen, as I mentioned, financial services seems to be adopting pretty quickly. A
Hmm.
couple of the other industries that seem to be on the forefront of utilizing this, the data security and governance industry, I think, is doing a really good job of grabbing a hold of this technology
Hmm.
and getting it into place. And then, probably not very surprising, the technology industry, I think, is really grasping this as well. I mean, it's kind of their baby if you want to think about it.
Yes.
So why wouldn't they use it, right?
Hmm.
But I think those are probably the three that are leading that charge, that are adopting quickest and moving forward with this technology.
Great. And do you think we still have untapped markets which for data cloud or AI adoption, like
Oh,
certain things which we haven't even started, those
yeah,
also haven't even
absolutely.
started.
Data's everywhere in any industry, and it doesn't matter whether it's a construction industry or a service industry or anything like that. There's data
Hmm.
everywhere, and all of those other industries could potentially take advantage of the technology. I think industries that rely heavily on a customer service function, or a
Hmm.
sales function, probably should seriously look at it and figure out how to best utilize it to move things forward, to help them out quicker than perhaps some other ones that don't necessarily have those
Mm,
functions, because I think there's a big benefit that they could see in those particular areas.
right. So some questions from the community is how do organizations restrict their employees from using web data versus sensitive corporate data for their LLM searches? If it is not, if, Mohit, you just said from Salesforce perspective, there are those guardrails from a data layer perspective where we are obfuscating from the contact information and whatnot. But what others, if they are not on Salesforce, for example, they are utilizing some third-party solutions. How do
yeah,
they do that?
by blocking them. That's the reality of it, right? Like chat gpt is blocked in a lot of organizations. You can't use
Mm,
chat gpt on your corporate machine, simply
mm,
because ChatGPT has a setting where if you enable it, I mean, of course, they provide as a setting. So if you enable that setting, right, you are giving them the permission to use whatever you are prompting as
mm,
data for them to turn on, right? So the way the organizations regulate them is by uh, making sure that you don't have access to those tools, right? That's like the first layer, right?
mm-hmm,
Other organizations have built tools on top of these LLM providers, because these LLM providers also provide APIs. And
mm,
and the thing is, a lot of time, as when you're doing or when you're working as API on top of these LLMs, these APIs have restrictions that they don't like retain your data. Okay,
mm,
because they need these APIs to be faster. That's their thing. And then just because they want developers to sort of use and put these LLMs and inferences in their own apps, right? They kind of adopted this model, right? So as an API, I would say that these LLMs are safe, much safer than how we would use in ChatGPT. So really what most of the organizations are doing is they are building their own client, right? Like somebody might use a GPT-4 API from OpenAI, and they might build
mm-hmm,
a solution on top of it, and then they expose that to the end user, right, or to
mm,
the employees. So the employees can get benefit out of these LLM providers, right? So that those are the two ways by which, and again, some corporations might build their own rules in their firewalls, etc., to stop someone from like being able to use these LLMs, etc. But as an employee, you need to be very careful when you are using these tools, especially when you are, because you have access to these tools now, just like social media, right? Like I can be on the phone and my phone is not blocked by my organization, and I
That's right.
can go and accidentally put an information about my organization, right? So those things also needs to be considered, and a lot of times organizations have measures in place. I mean, this is same like internet access, right? You can control the internet access through your firewall, through your
Hmm.
intranet, and through your VPN, right? So a lot of organizations have these things in place already where they control this.
Great. And this is an interesting one. What role should AI have in helping humans think smarter without making us too dependent or reducing our ability to think critically?
That is an interesting question. Um, and maybe the danger is there's humans here. I mean, we all. I think in general nature, humans are potentially lazy, and they want to take the shortcuts, and they want to find the fastest way to get something done. Um,
Mm.
and so the danger in that is sometimes the choices made along the way may not actually turn out to be the brightest ones. There may
True.
be a poor decision made somewhere on that path that in the case of data exposes some data to places where it shouldn't be. Um, Hopefully there's firewalls and guardrails in place that might catch that even if the human doesn't do it properly.
Mm.
Um, but that's a risk for sure. Uh,
Yeah, I think so. Again, it's gonna be two-sided sword. Okay, it's gonna be two-sided sword, just like internet, right? I think about it.
Mhm.
See, look, internet, you can always use it to maximum efficiency. Other way around, it can make you lazy too, right? So you see, like I can probably walk. If I have a store to grab something, I can walk and grab a thing, or I can use my internet app to order something, right?
Mhm.
And again, same principle applies to AI too, right? Like getting job done from AI, you could get it done in an efficient way, right? And sometimes, I mean, you as a human have to really think through this, right? Will AI be smarter than me, right? And the answer at this point, the answer is no, for sure. For sure, like if you're like, let's say, a developer, right? I can put myself in the developer shoot and think a little bit about this. Like, as a developer, if I'm not understanding these fundamentals of programming, let's say, and I'm still using these LLMs to write code, I'm pretty sure at one point you will not only produce like code that will not pass through sec review and things like that, but at some point you will be stuck in a thing where LLM is not helping, and then you're helpless just because
Mm.
you don't know the stuff, right? So if you don't know the stuff, LLMs are going to be dangerous. If you know your stuff, LLMs are going to make you efficient. So that is
and
on this.
from my perspective a little bit more on that, I'm basically consider myself a marketer, and so I could sit there and put a prompt into chat gpt or something and say, write me a blog post on xyz, and it would
Mhm.
spit out this marvelous post, and I could even put parameters on there that says give me at least 600 words on this topic, and it would do that just fine. But what's missing is the blog post wouldn't sound like I wrote it. It wouldn't have my tone of voice. It wouldn't have the quirks that I normally would use in my own verbiage and things like that. So from the person reading it, they're going to say, "This wasn't Eric." They'll hopefully they'll be able to figure that out. And so there is the danger of the human almost getting lost in that
Mm.
equation.
Yes. Exactly, and
That's true.
it will not be effective for sure. And speaking of blog posts, I also write a lot of blog posts, right? And I don't use Chat GPT to write these blog posts. I mean, of course, I might use it to like clarify something, learn about something, and there are multiple ways I use it. But I don't use to write, entire content, because it's like it's not going to be effective for sure, because the way I want to write and express is totally different than how a machine would do. So You see that that's the thing, and that ultimately you want experience as a human. You strive for experience, and I think that is where I think the machines are not going to be that thing. They can help you, but
Mhm.
they're not going to replace human experience. And
That
it's
is true.
like,
Yeah, I think we should be using all of these AI agents more to assist us rather than replace us. The way we are modeling them, we are training them also to say that, hey, this is what I need. Just give me suggestions, and we can pick and choose what suggestion works best for the task that we are planning to do.
mm, absolutely.
So we are right at time, and I would like to close this conversation with predictions. And Eric, first one is for you. What's one prediction about AI and data cloud that you believe will surprise everyone?
Oh wow. I think as we move forward into the future, I think it's pretty obvious we're going to see increased adoption and utilization of the tools and the technology that
Hmm.
and data cloud are bringing on. But I think probably the one thing that we may end up seeing that surprises people is what it's going to do for them and personally. For those of you that are out there in the trenches doing the work, once you've implemented the AI and data cloud
Hmm.
solutions, you may be surprised as to how it's going to change your job and how it's going to affect your daily task list. And it's going to enable you all to do so much more and put your mind onto things that really need the human mind, as opposed to the rather mundane tasks that can very easily be automated or handled through other mechanisms. I think I think even though we all realize that's the case, I think the results when we see it live and in person for us is still going to be very surprising.
Mohit?
Yeah, I think only one prediction I can make is, I think at this point, I'll speak from a developer's perspective. I think at this point, developers or admins or implementation experts, right? From that perspective, I think at this point, we are underestimating the amount of work that will get generated out of it. That
Mm.
will be my first prediction. I think we are just underestimating for sure. I look at data cloud, I'm like, okay, that's gonna. I mean, even though we say, okay, it's easy, and it's gonna be easier, the thing about good work is more work, right? So I think it's gonna be a lot of opportunity here. That's for sure. It's gonna be a green field. If you look at like 5 years from now, you'll be like, wow, I cannot imagine how this would have all been possible without like AI and data tools here. So that's what I'm excited about, to see a lot of work in hands of developers.
That's great. And yeah, future seems very exciting for sure. Any resources that you would suggest for the community where they are either they are in the trenches to think about how they should be doing going through this data cloud and AI journey, or for the developers?
Yeah, from a resources point of view, I just want to call out that you have always have developer.salesforce.com. There you can go and look at our agent force workshop. So of course we have agent force workshops happening, so pay attention to that, because we
Mhm.
give free orgs and we teach people how to do. Conferences are a great way, like dreaming events. I would rather go to these dreaming events actually, because the amount of learning that you do in a day is far more than reading by yourself, right? So
Mhm.
those have a lot of value. Conferences, workshop, hackathons, that's another thing that I would encourage people to do, organize hackathons, because these things are like, as soon as you build in a day, like you dedicate a day to build, right, and just do that thing, that one thing, so you learn a lot in there. And again, our resources on YouTube, Trailhead, all these are great resources for people to follow.
Great. Any resources from your end, Rick?
I think just above and beyond everything Mohit just said, don't discount the value in personal conversations with other people. Everyone's got unique experiences, and the way they share the things they
Mhm.
have seen and done might spark some interest in you, or might solve a problem that you have, or perhaps even a problem you didn't realize you had until you saw someone or heard someone talking about their own
Right.
solutions.
Right. Thank you, Eric and Mohit, for sharing your valuable experience and insights. And this provided invaluable perspectives to the community about data cloud and future of AI. To our listeners, stay tuned to more conversations like this and give us your feedback. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Take care, everyone. Bye bye.